A stack is a very simple data structure to understand. Let's say that you want to bury a gold bar to hide it. You drop the gold bar down in the hole, and then you start covering it with dirt. When you decide you want your gold bar back, you have some layers of dirt you need to process. The gold bar was the first thing in, and it's the last thing out. Just like in the video for the queue, we are going to use an array for our stack. And for this, we need an object class that will hold an array. But instead of making a new one, let's go ahead and use the one that we already have for the queue. So let's go into the queue folder and retrieve that. And let's move it into the Algorithms and Data Structures folder. And let's make a new folder for it and call it Array. Let's go ahead and rename this object. To rename, just press F2. And let's go ahead and drop it into the folder. Let's also make a folder for the stack. And just like what we did for the queue, we are going to make a blueprint interface for the stack. Let's open up the folder, right click, come down to Blueprints, and over here, let's make another blueprint interface. And let's go into the interface. For our stack, let's just do two functions, push and pop. When we push an object onto the stack, we are just adding it. Let's give it an input for string data. Make a function for pop. And when we pop from the stack, we are removing from the same end that we are pushing it. Let's add an output so we can get back the data. And that is all that we need to do in the interface. Let's open up the array folder, and let's open up the array object. Here we already have our array along with our enqueue and dequeue for the queue interface. Let's come over to the class settings again, and in the interface section, let's add another interface. This time search for the stack. And when you add the stack interface, we now have our push and our pop functions. Let's start with push. For push, let's just go ahead and add to the tail of the array. Now let's set up the pop function. When we pop from the stack, we are going to get the data from the tail of the array and then delete it. So let's first set the data into a local variable. And what's important is that we make sure that we are getting from the last index. Now we just simply remove from the last index. Select Remove Index. Make sure that it is the last index. And don't forget to return your data. And that is the pop function. We don't need to set up a print array function because we already have one here. One thing that we also have to consider is the edge case that we are calling pop on an array that is empty. Similar to isValid, for an array we have an isEmpty. Let's use the isNotEmpty. If the array is not empty, do this stuff. If it is empty, then let's just return. This way it just returns null data. Let's now go hook up our stack and a widget class. And for this, let's use the same linked list widget that we are using with our queue. Make sure that you construct the object for the array in the event construct. And let's run it. Now let's go implement our stack interface in our linked list class. In the linked list class, let's go to class settings, come over to interfaces, and let's find our stack interface. And with it implemented, we have our push and our pop functions. For the push function, let's utilize our prepend. This will push data into the head of our linked list. And for the pop function, let's get the data that's in the head and then delete the head, but only if the head is valid. So let's first run an isValid. If the head is not valid, then just return with null data. If the head is valid, then let's get the data and set it as a local variable. We need to see if head is pointing to a next node. If head is not pointing to a next node, then let's set head to null and return the data. If head's next is valid, then let's set head to head's next. And then return the data. And that's the pop function. Now let's go implement the stack linked list on the widget class. Make sure you construct the linked list. We have a linked list called linked list. We have an array object for a queue, a linked list for a queue, an array for a stack, and a linked list for a stack.